Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and today I'm joined by the full team. Oscar, how you doing, mate? You right?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks.
Good. And Zach, how you feeling?
Buzzing as ever, mate.
Yes. It is Matchday Preview time. Back to St Mary's tomorrow for another wonderful home trip against a Newcastle team who just lost to Bournemouth, so should be right for the taking, right? Oscar, how you feeling coming into the game? Is there hope?
Mixed, really. Much as Southampton all season, it depends. Are we going to get absolutely steamrolled, or are we going to be plucky and still lose? I'm between one or the other. You know, there is still ever the optimist that says maybe we catch them on the back foot. I think it's the as you've mentioned before, the wounded dog analogy comes out for me in Newcastle. As a club, probably will. The fan base will demand that as well. So I'm, I don't know what the word is for it, really, cautiously pessimistic. The flip of it. I think we'll probably lose, but let's just hope we can limit the damage.
And Zach, after our podcast with Ian yesterday, you feeling like bouncing back is something that Newcastle squad's capable of, or are they on a downward turn of form?
They seem to have, well, as he pointed out, the ability for how to basically have a word and suddenly all of them play well again, which is wild. Like I can't remember the last time we had a manager like that that's able to somehow switch the mentality with just a sharp word in their ears. No, I guess yesterday's 3-1 was extremely pessimistic. Maybe we could do something. The problem is it really depends on who turns up on the day. And like judging by the news that's coming out of the presser, we might end up finally seeing Archer and Onuachu play together. Who knows? Maybe
just seen to make it even worse that Ramsdale might not be available for the game either. He is a late call due to a knock in training. So,
ooh.
Okay, so I'd like to change that prediction to 5-1 to Newcastle.
That's not ideal. Where are we at with that? I mean, I don't know what McCarthy's fitness is like either, because he was struggling earlier in the season. Do we know if he's back up and running?
You would hope with enough time off he's back up. It does say that everybody else is fit, supposedly, apart from Diblin and Kamaldeen.
Is Bizounou ready? Is he registered? Can we register him? Because I know for a fact that Jurek said that he saw him and thinks he's a great goalkeeper, and I wouldn't be surprised that he puts him in as a backup over.
Yeah, that's a great shout.
McCarthy.
Had some game time for the under-21s the other week, so maybe it's not quite as physically demanding as sort of an outfield position, I presume. A goalkeeper to switch up, like you dive in about
against
either
Newcastle.
Way. Well, yeah, that's true.
Well, if you let him all in,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That my wonder about it is, Bizounou probably more brought in for his prowess on the ball. We know about some limitations he has off the ball if we're playing a slightly different system. I'll be interested to see how he fits in. Should we say that?
Yeah, I think you're right though, because from what I saw of Bizounou, sort of both in the relegation season and in the season, he's one of these players that can just put the ball on a 50p piece just about anywhere on the field. So I think he'll suit the system absolutely fine. I think the longer distribution definitely suits his abilities. So, but you're right. The might have been forced into the dream combination we've been asking for of Toolpool and Cameron Archer just because there's nobody left. Although in sort of moments where that's been the case before, we've seen Juric favour Armstrong. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I've got some stats. We love the AI generated spiel that comes out before the game, and it doesn't paint a pretty picture. To be the AI paragraph itself actually has the words referring to us of languish and daunting, which is Never what you want to see. But yeah, it thinks that we're going to lose and by quite a few goals by the looks of it. So I don't know. It's going to be cold and wet. It could be a really another miserable day at St Mary's. I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting pumped for it or not. It's such a strange game, and with such a limited selection, apparently.
The complete opposite feeling to the first game against Newcastle, right? Where everyone went in, pretty sure you got to see Artful Dodger. Everyone had a great time, was buzzing to go in to watch us lose 1-0.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure. It's going to be an interesting one. With the sort of limited selection we've got, Oscar, are there any players on the fringe you think would be unlucky to not get a chance that we've not really seen under Juric? Like Sam Amomayor, is he going to ever break into the first team?
I'd like to see it. Sometimes in this situation, fearlessness is something that you probably need. I think a lot of these players are a bit like we said last time we went down. There's psychological damage going on. So maybe it might be just refreshing to throw someone in and say, look, just have at it, see what we can do. I personally wouldn't be against that, especially given the areas in which we're limited. So I noted down a couple of ideas for, what we might look like. And that right wing position is a question mark, without dibbling. And now the left wing as well, apparently. So I think has anyone really put their foot? Maybe could we see Bella Kotchap involved? I know we've said it for a while, and I know there have been reasons that he hasn't, but there was a reason he got dragged up to Nottingham in the end and didn't play for the 23s. So maybe that's something. I'm not sure. For me, that Project James Bree at right centre-back is working too well, especially when we're going to be up against big physical players. Maybe what we need is a big physical centre-half. Possibly. Something
would be really trolly though, right? Against the Newcastle side, we haven't got Ben Brereton Diaz anymore, but do you know who we do have, who hasn't had a game in forever, that has an opportunity now Suleiman is out? Ryan Fraser. Because Juric said he likes him. He thinks that there's just a lot of people ahead of him. And, the problem is after, when it's time to make the subs, if you're missing all of the players that have made the last couple of games, who are you going to bring on instead? And, nothing like upsetting the entirety of the Newcastle fan base by bringing on a man that they dislike.
Yeah, the trouble I think with that, if that gets him going, that's something that will really give him an advantage. So
I'll have to see.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to move on to what we think the lineup might look like. But first, a message from our partners at Zencastr. So here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so you said you've done some prep work, Oscar, so I'm going to throw straight over to you. How do you see it?
Yeah, it's trying to look at what we could best do to affect Newcastle. So they typically this season have been playing a 4-3-3. My concern is that if we stick with, and I know managers sticking to their principles has been a contentious topic this season, but if we stick with Juric going for a 3-4-3, I do wonder how that dynamic is going to look in the centre of midfield if Newcastle have got three of probably their more key players in Tonali, Guimaraes and Joel Linton. How is a two of Ogachukwu and Aribo going to fare? That's a question I would ask. And we saw in the Palace game what happens when we get overrun and lose the midfield. So, I mentioned in the last podcast, is it a possibility? Can we see? I know he didn't have his greatest game last game, and maybe arguably, if the referee had done his job, shouldn't be playing this game. But could we see Downs and Ogachukwu together behind a Matty Fernandez, or as a two rather than a one, and just give a bit more support in there? Is maybe what I'd like to see. I don't know. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I like that idea. I think you were right earlier about the James Bree experiment. Maybe we see Nathan Wood back in the mix as well. Slightly more natural centre back at least.
I think as well. I would, as much as I love the idea of Onuachu and Archer together, and I agree. I think long term, it's definitely something we should look at. I think an area to get at Newcastle, which has been fairly fruitful recently elsewhere, is behind the fullbacks. They both like to get forward, and we know Livramento much more positive going one direction than the other. So maybe that is an area. It's a shame. Sulemana, it would have been perfect for someone like him. But maybe this is a game where we do need to keep that width. Could we, one thing I potentially looked at, Ryan Manning, I think, to be fair, has been unfortunate not to be involved. Could we get him back involved and maybe get Walker Peters up there at Livramento? I appreciate he's a right back, not a left winger, but he's done a job there before. Maybe something to look at. Master versus apprentice, so to speak.
Could be interesting. What about Zach fullbacks? I know that we've talked before about the balance of like a Walker Peters and a Yuki on the same team. You see it sticking with that, or do you see?
I kind of agree with Oscar. Like Manning's done a lot to miss out, and like it's. I know that Yuki's had his moments. Sometimes he hasn't been the best defensively. I don't understand why we don't play our players in their natural positions. Like why we wouldn't play Kyle in right back, because that's, right wing backs, that's where he plays and that's where he's better. And, Manning has been good. Has been very good this season, considerably surprising to all of us. I think no one really expected him to make the step up that he has. So yeah, I would like to maybe see him get given a go, especially in a game like this. But whether or not we actually see it, I don't know. I could see him easily just sticking with Yuki and Kyle because that's what's in his mind worked, I guess, so far.
Do we think we might see Gromback today on Saturday?
I think they said in the presser probably not this weekend, probably the weekend after. But then if we end up with some sort of disaster in the midfield, I wouldn't be surprised.
See him on the bench and get bought on perhaps, but I would be surprised if they chuck him in, unless the presser is something that Russell Martin used to do consistently, was just say the opposite thing in the press conference to what was going to happen to throw him off. So maybe, but I don't see it. I don't think that Juric has that. I think that he is almost honest to a fault a lot of the time.
Well, Jan described him as
press conferences.
Gruesome. It's really good, and I'm kind of glad because a lot of these players maybe do need a kick up the backside sometimes, especially with some of the performances we've had this season. So it'll be interesting.
Just lastly, I think Nathan Wood for me as well would be a shout to get back in there, because given how athletic the front, all three of Newcastle's attacking players are, I think that may be a bit more appealing than seeing Isak running at Bednarek. I think at least Wood might be able to deal with him a little bit better. But Bednarek's been good this season, don't get me wrong, and I wouldn't drop him for him, but he'd be a player I'd look to try and can we involve him.
We've kind of talked about it like it's a given, but is Toolpool like a guaranteed starter, do we think? Surely, right? He's the go-to in this current situation.
My worry is if we do what Oscar says and remove him and sort of do instead we put like an Armstrong and an Archer up front. Like I don't know if you saw the stats for when they were both playing together last game, but it was like they had 7 touches in the opposition's penalty area, box, and then other than that it was 0 shots. And just the problem is that regardless of how we should try and outclass another player, you need to be playing the players that have the confidence. I think it would be a bit of criminal to get him to score his first goal and then decide to drop him for the game.
Oh, sorry. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't drop him. I'd have him. I'd have him up front in the 3. At least there's finally scored a goal down the middle. I would be apprehensive if we're gonna rely on him to be the out ball. How much joy he's going to get against Dan Burn. Because for a big fella, he's not particularly good in the air.
No, and also, coming up against another big fella, as opposed to what he's been so far, where he's had about an extra foot to deal with whatever comes in.
Unbelievable chest control, but heading the ball, I'm not sure is his forte. But
I don't know.
Maybe harsh to say after he scored.
Maybe the goal he scored with his head is just the the piece of confidence he needed, that final piece of the puzzle to bang him on. And look, I'm down for an opening 10 minutes Paul Ohaнаchu goal, because then the roof is going to be off at St Mary's and that atmosphere is going to be wild. It's going to be a party.
I'm down for an opening 10-minute goal. At this rate, just want to see us do well.
Okay, well, speaking of that sort of optimism, we'll head to predicted scores and how we think the game will play out. But first, a message from our partners at the Global Sports Podcast Network.
The Global Sport Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts.
Okay, so we heard a little bit of Zach and myself's thoughts on the crossover episode yesterday. So Oscar, I'm intrigued to see where you fit into this optimist pessimist line that we've got going on. How do you see it playing out tomorrow?
I hate to disappoint you, Greg, but I also went for a 3-1 to Newcastle. I think we will play a bit better. I think possibly even go one ahead. It will be a tight game that will be 2-1 fairly late into the game, and then they'll catch us with a third. I don't think it will be one of those where we roll over and get absolutely walloped. But, I've been wrong before. So, yeah, I'd go with 3-1.
Yeah. Where do you think the goal comes from for us if we're scoring first?
That's a good question. Can we put a Newcastle player down as first goal scorer for us? I mean, I think there has to be a conversation as to how close that might be for our top goal scorer at the moment. I don't imagine it must be pretty close. Let's go for Toolpool. Let's see if we can have. Let's see if he doubles up, starts the run.
Yeah, Jamie Vardy in your goal scored in consecutive Premier League games. Watch out. Paul Ohaнаchu's coming for you.
That does actually remind me. I'm fairly sure last game Isak didn't score, did he? And he stopped him from getting that streak. So I think he's going to be quite hungry for one this game, possibly two, probably more.
Yes, it is definitely a point of concern. But look, the faith stays strong with me. I won't be captaining him in my FPL. Zach. Still vibing on a 3-1, changing to slightly more now. You know that we're missing, some of the team that have been good.
I think if Ramsdale is truly out and we have Bizounou in, the biggest problem with Bizounou is, you're right, he's really good at putting a ball on a 50 pence piece, but combined with the individual errors that our defensive line like to make, and midfield, to be fair, combined with his inability to kind of shot stop, I can see easy being sort of like a 5-1. But maybe if he is in and his distribution is there, maybe we get a Toolpool hat trick and we lose 5-3. That'd be exciting. But I'll probably end up sticking to mine. It's gonna be 3 goals. It's gonna be Isaac scoring a hat trick out of some sort of bitter anger at the Bournemouth game. We will get a Toolpool goal because he will now become our consecutive goal scorer, and that'll be it. And I'll probably end up triple captaining Isaac just in case. Player I always admired from his Dortmund days on Football Manager. He was really upset when he came to Newcastle because you can't buy him cheap anymore.
No. Well, surprising no one, I'm sticking with my pick of 2-1 as a win. I think that maybe you're both right. I think we do go ahead, probably early. I might catch them napping a bit and them not expect us to be quite so on the front foot. Toolpool with some sort of fumbling in the goal. It won't be like a nice deliberate goal like we saw last weekend. It'll be like a mess, I think. Then I think Newcastle will probably get a goal back, and then I just think that it will be the opportunity to prove that we've taken the confidence from our performances and to see the switch of that mentality that we've been crying out for the rest of the season, and that we go on and get some chances and just take one of them. Maybe something like a Harwood Bettis header or something from like a Matty Fernandez play, because he's an unbelievable player. I would like to see him score more. So, yeah.
What would you What would you say is a positive outcome from the game? Like, at what point does it become, like, for me, is a 1-0 to Newcastle, good performance. I mean, we're expecting to probably lose. I think all the last 3 games you'd look at and think, yeah, maybe a draw. But what would you see as a positive building on the last few games?
I think if it's a 1-0 loss and it's like an unbelievable goal and not a mistake, that's probably good enough. But if it's a 1-0 loss where it's another one of our like blooper reel moments, I don't think that's positive enough.
Yeah.
They've got to build up the runtime for that DVD. Like, it's already a mile long. Don't get me wrong, but that's a very interesting question because I don't know how I feel going into any games anymore. Genuinely, it's sort of I just assume we're going to lose, and as long as it doesn't have the feeling that like the Chelsea game or the Tottenham game had, that's okay. Because like the Man U game, 3-1. But it didn't have the feeling. Realistically, we should all be really, really angry that we held on a lead for 82 minutes or whatever, and then just absolutely bottle jobbed it in a way that was just capitulation at the end of the day. But yet somehow I wasn't as angry as like the Tottenham game where, you go 4-0 down to Spurs in their current season within 25 minutes. It kills you inside a little bit. And that is my problem, is that I could easily see Newcastle like doing that, ripping the team to shreds, especially if you're missing some of the sort of talismans, if we could even call them that, of some of our team at the moment. So I don't really know what would constitute not terrible for me personally. I think it was just actually having a performance, actually making sure that, if we get beaten, we're actually beaten, not just we down tools. I think that's all we really want to see at the end of the day. We kind of, most of us know the season's done for. Ian was kind enough to, on the crossover, to say, oh, well, it's not mathematically impossible. It's not mathematically impossible, but it kind of feels like it is at this point. So, all we really want to see for the rest of the season is at least some fight, maybe some wins, maybe some points. Even if it's a 0-0 draw that's boring, as much as that Fulham game almost killed me, it was a point at the end of the day. And anything that gets us closer to beating that Derby record is vitally important. I do not want us to go down as the worst team in Premier League history.
Yeah, that's I guess is we need to start getting something on the board to start, even if it's a draw. Like, I know a draw doesn't really help anyone, but it is 1 point closer at least.
You can use it as a reset board as well, and maybe a springboard. I mean, not that it's that sort of, I think, sums up the season so far. If we're using a 1-1 draw against Newcastle at home to reset the season, but you're right, it might just be what they need to sort of rebuild.
It's just anything that's not zero. Anything that's not 0 points at this point, Greg, is, it's like, oh, it might not be exciting, it might not be flashy. Neither team needs it. Yeah, we do. We need to draw every single one of the games from now until the end of the season, and we'll have enough points to not look like the worst Premier League team in history. If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. Will it happen? Absolutely not. We give away far too many goals. And again, the blooper reel needs to be finished. There's got to be at least 30 minutes of footage there by the end of the season. So
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
But I'm still feeling positive. I'm feeling like we can go on and get a win. With weather warnings out in play, I don't know if I'm actually looking forward to the trip down to St Mary's tomorrow, but that's more of a logistic issue than a football one. I think that we can get something. And
we've been better.
Yeah.
We've been better. Like, that's the positive takeaway from it. And even coming from the most pessimistic member of the team is that watching us over the last couple of games hasn't been absolutely soul destroying. Like, the Manchester United game was actually quite exciting. Just have to see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is just about all we've got time for. So thank you very much for listening to us. We will be back on Monday when we run down exactly how it played out over the weekend and give you our wonderful thoughts of that relishing in the win. It'll be a celebratory podcast. That's the vibe I'm putting into the universe. As always, Zach, Oscar, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, mate.
Let us know in the comments how you think we're going to get on, your score predictions. Leave us a review. Catch us on the socials on X, Blue Sky, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and wherever you listen to your podcast. Give us a review. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you Monday.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.